Welcome to today's MTC webinar covering members' frequently asked questions related to WHS site inspections. My name's Ed Napukowski, the current head of MTC operations. I'll start off with I'd like to apologise on behalf of Kate, our WHS consultant, who was scheduled to deliver today's webinar. Unfortunately, due to personal reasons, Kate's off work at the moment and unable to be with us today, so I'm stepping in. I'm letting you know that today's webinar is being recorded, so you'll have the opportunity to review the content again at a later date or share it with others who are unable to see it today. There will be some time for additional questions towards the end of today's session, but to allow us to cover the main topics first, we request any additional questions be entered into the chat and we'll seek to answer them towards the end. So let's get started. So the first question that we often get asked is, what is the benefit for my business in doing a site inspection? And really there's two answers to that. The first is it's an opportunity for you to review your current working arrangements, confirming what is working well, and also identify any gaps in your operational safety management. It's also a great way to demonstrate to your workforce your due diligence, to show them that you're serious about workplace health and safety, and to get them involved in what it is that you're looking at to make the workplace safer. So they're the two main key parts. The second thing that we get often asked is, what should I expect during a site inspection? Well, you can expect a friendly and knowledgeable safety professional to come to your workplace and to help you identify what you're doing well, confirm that you are doing things correct, and also help you identify what you may need to work on, what gaps that you've got. They'll ask you and your nominated workers questions. They'll request to see records and walk around your site observing work practices. They'll look at the arrangements that you've made, the environment that you're in, how people are doing their job and the records that are being kept. But please understand that a workplace inspection from MTC is not a government safety inspection. We're not regulators. We're not part of WorkCover or WorkSafe. We do not share what we discover in our site inspection with other bodies as well. It's between us and you. It's about your improvement opportunity. We've been engaged by your organisation or your parent organisation to help you keep your workers safe. That's the motivation. How do you prepare for a site inspection? Well, there's three things that you can do. You can prepare by looking at the last inspection you've had done. That is, if you've had one done in the past, going over what was identified, what you agreed to do, and making sure that it's been done, or what changes there are. Or if this is your first inspection, it's a good idea to review the outcomes of a self-assessment if you've completed one, because the self-assessment also highlights your areas of opportunity and your strengths, particularly related to your safety management system. And you can also have a look at a copy of the inspection criteria that the consultant would use to help you set up and think about what you may need to prepare. Who needs to be involved in a site inspection? Well, the inspection is usually booked in with the dealer principal or your financial controller, and it's a good idea to make sure that your key operational supervisors on the site are available on the day to answer questions, provide documentation, access to people and maintenance records, safety training, all that sort of stuff. Having them available on the day, knowing that the consultant is coming, is a really important thing. We need someone who has the required access to be able to take the consultant around into all areas of the site. Someone who is comfortable with the site, someone who is comfortable with the layout. And if you have nominated health and safety representatives, you may also like to have them involved in the site inspection process. I would recommend, as a minimum, you should introduce them to the consultant when they're on site, letting them know that the site inspection is taking place. How long does a site inspection usually take? Well, a typical site inspection for a showroom or a workshop takes about 3 hours. This can vary, however, based on the size and the complexity of site. Obviously, the larger and more complex a site, the more spread out it is, the more departments there are to work through, the longer that it can take. But it usually can be comfortably completed within a 3-hour time slot. Now, getting down to the tin tacks, what are the sort of things that are reviewed during a site inspection? Well, one of the first things we look at is management of your dangerous goods and hazardous chemicals. And in that particular area, we would examine things like, do you have a chemical register? Do you have access to the current safety data sheets for all the chemicals that you have on site? Are your chemicals all correctly labelled and stored correctly? Are chemicals that are allowed to be stored together and those that need to be separated, separated? Are you using old Coke bottles to store chemicals when you know you shouldn't be doing that because they no longer have the correct label? Do you have adequate spill control measures in place for when accidents do occur? And a topic that will be repeated throughout today's session is, have your workers received the appropriate training and instruction in regard to this and other areas? We also look at emergency planning and your response. We look at things like your fire system compliance. Are there clear paths of egress for people to get out from site if they need to? What are your first aid arrangements that you have in place? Do you have evacuation procedures, and do you have an up-to-date site diagram? Is there evidence of trained emergency personnel, your wardens, deputy wardens, etc.? And have you conducted a site staff emergency evacuation and then debriefed that evacuation exercise to see how it went and what you can learn from it? Some of the other things that we would review are, we look at your general storage practices. Things like, how do you store your spare parts and equipment? Do you have identified safe working load on your racking and on your storage shelves? How is your racking secured and protected from accidental damage? Do your workers have access to appropriate lifting aids? And if you happen to have mezzanine structures, do you have declared engineering safe working loads for those structures? Were they rated originally for office space and now you're using them to store spare cars or new cars? Very different weight limits, very different exposure. One of the key areas we also want to focus on when we're on your site is traffic and pedestrian management. As we operate in motor trades, this is a big area, with vehicles being a big part of our working environments. We look for evidence of a traffic and pedestrian management plan, where possible, the physical separation of people and mobile equipment, or evidence of procedures to safely share controlled spaces, time management. If the area is accessed by vehicles, it's not free for use by pedestrians, and vice versa. We would look at loading and unloading practices, especially where forklifts are in use, making sure that you have licensed and trained operators, clearly defined pathways, and signage to indicate your control measures. Also, we would look at your workshop plant and equipment. Obviously, you can understand that ensuring equipment remains fit for purpose is a key component of any safety. A review of your maintenance records and your inspection programs. The isolation of damaged or faulty equipment so that it cannot be used when you know that it's at fault. General equipment such as guarding, testing of emergency stops, isolation procedures, and access control are all part of the things that we would look at. And if you conduct spray painting, a review of your work practices to verify compliance in that area. And again, as always, evidence of the appropriate worker instruction and training. Have they been trained? Are they comfortable with what they're doing? We also look at safe access and egress, simple things. Walking around, we will consider things like potential slip, trip, and fall hazards and the controls that you've got in place. Ensuring that your stairs have suitable handrails. What's the condition of your floor surfaces? Is there evidence of regular oil spills that are left spilt with slip hazards? What's your general lighting look like? Are there areas that are dark with exposed areas of potential trip hazards? And again, if you have mezzanine levels, verifying that they are engineered for their actual use and they have actual adequate fall protection so that if someone's on the mezzanine level, they're not going to end up accidentally on the shop floor. We also look at your general facilities arrangements. This includes a review of your available amenities, arrangements for handling of waste, whether that be general, hazardous or recycling waste, the management of noise within your workplace, which could lead to induced hearing loss, and an overview of your workplace health and safety signage. Is the signage present? Is it legible? Is it regularly inspected? Is it understood? And is it being adhered to? They're the main things that we would cover in a site inspection. What are some of the improvement opportunities that we've identified? Some of the things that we found are a lack of a chemical register or the poor storage of chemicals. You may not be aware that some chemicals cannot be stored together, and so they need to be separated in different areas. Chemicals that if they are accidentally mixed, can lead to fire or explosion. Lack of safe work instructions for regular tasks undertaken by your workers. How can you train them in what they need to do if you haven't considered what the actual work instructions are and the safe way to do them? Lack of trained and emergency control personnel, your chief, deputy and fire wardens. You might have appointed them. Have they received the training that they need to do the job that you're asking them to do, if and when it's needed? For fire system compliance, most common things that we would see there are out-of-date inspection tags on fire extinguishers, or empty, that is discharged fire extinguishers, or extinguishers that have gone missing. Poor traffic and pedestrian management. One of the key areas that we've seen there in some sites is when the food truck arrives, it's a mad rush for everyone to get to the food truck, and all your controls about separating people from the hazards of mobile or moving equipment fall out the window. Big area of risk if you don't look after it properly. Again, unknown loading capacity of mezzanine structures and racking systems. They look sturdy, but are they rated for what you're putting on them? And sometimes we've identified that they've been overloaded. And potential fall from height risks, particularly from mezzanine areas and elevated loading bays. No way to stop a person from walking backwards over the edge because there's no barrier in place. But then some of the good things that we've seen. And like I said before, there have been some really good things, and I'd like to share some of those with you. Top of my list is active visual involvement by senior leaders in your worker safety. Actually showing that they care and being present on the shop floor makes a big impact on how safe your workplace is. A good induction and a buddy system for your new starters. Not just, here's where your locker is, that's where the bathroom is, but someone who's experienced and knows what to do, where to go and where not to go, and is able to coach and mentor that new starter until they are comfortable to be on their own. The separation of mobile equipment and pedestrians, a really big piece. We've seen some really good stuff there, particularly in some areas where forklifts were being used, where forklifts, you may not know if you don't have a forklift ticket, when you sit in a forklift, you've got a far more restricted line of sight than in your own car because you've got the mast in front of you that gives you blind spots. So sites that have used spotters to keep the area clear in front or behind of the forklift and passing information to the forklift driver has been really good. That carries on to designated and controlled unloading areas so that loading, receipt of goods, dispatch of goods is all done in the same space and in a controlled environment. A robust safety committee, a means to discuss ideas, a means to rate issues that are being raised, a means to share best practice that is being shared. Really good stuff happening in some of the sites. Again, the use of toolbox meetings to actively engage with workers on safety topics and issues. You would have noticed that on Care Central, there's a whole lot of really good toolbox talks that you can download that may be related to your particular activities. use them to your advantage. And we've seen some of that in practice. A clean and organised work environment. You get a feel for a site when you walk in. If there's stuff stored up against the wall, if there's evidence of oil spills not being cleared, if there's lighting that's out and it's been out for months and hasn't been repaired, it tells you about a lot about the business. But we've seen some really good stuff happening where you go in and you could eat your dinner off the floor if you really wanted to, because it's just that clean and it's that pristine an environment. Good for your customers as well as good for your workers. And the use of digital systems or QR codes to support equipment inspections. We've seen some really good stuff there where some of the sites have got a maintenance system, for example, on their hoists, where rather than pulling out a clipboard and finding the right form and having to fill it out, you go scan the code and there it is on your phone. You can do the inspection. It maintains the record. It sends a notification to the people that need to know what needs to be fixed. It makes it so much better. And evidence that the MTC Care Central resources have not just been downloaded by your organisation, but they've actually been put into practice. Always a good thing to see. What do you get at the end of an inspection? A site inspection usually takes about a month to get through to you, but if during the inspection the consultant identifies any significant safety issues, they'll be discussed with you then and there before the person leaves the site. And after leaving the site, usually within 2 days of the inspection, the safety consultant will send a summary email outlining what has been identified and the necessary steps to remedy it. But the formal report usually takes about a month after the inspection because there's a bit of work in consolidating all the photos and putting all the evidence together, tying it back to the relevant regs, etc. But it is a decent report and it's, worth its weight once you do get it about a month later. What do you do with the inspection report and findings, or what would we like you to do with the inspection report and the findings? Discuss the findings with your workforce, your health and safety reps or your safety committee, and encourage feedback on deciding what are the proposed improvement actions. Getting ownership and understanding of what needs to be done is a key part in getting it done. If you have multiple sites, gain input from the other sites with the same or similar equipment. Have they already solved the issue that you've now got to deal with? And also share your best practices. What's been identified as really good, share that with others in your network so that they can benefit from what you've already learned. We would encourage you to assign appropriate team members specific actions to address the findings. Don't just leave it to one person, break it down, share the workload and get people involved. And follow up with those team members periodically to ensure that the assigned actions actually get done. You can refer to the Care Central website for additional resources. And if you need it, you can also go to the workplace government sites where they have codes of practice for key things, key risks like manual handling, spray painting, etc., that share with you not what you legally have to do, but what best practice might look like. And that helps solve the issues that may have been found. We often get asked, do I actually need to engage MTC to do an inspection? And my answer to you is no. It doesn't have to be MTC. You can use anyone. In fact, you can complete a regular site inspection yourself. Getting it done and inspecting your site is the most important thing. And as a start, you may want to consider a regular, maybe a monthly combined walk the floor by leaders and your safety committee members, looking at a different section of the site each time if it's a large site, or a general walkthrough using a different path at a different time of the day each time so that you see different things that are happening to give you a good feel of what the exposures are on your work site. Also, making a conversation about safety a regular part of worker interaction is a great way to hear what's going well and identify areas of concern. And if your organisation has multiple sites, arranging for your safety committee members to visit and walk the floor at other locations is a great way to identify and share positive practices. Oh, you see that over there? We used to do it like that, but now we're doing it like this. Oh, I've never seen that before. We might take that idea and put it in place at our place. Learning from each other within your own organisation is also a great way to learn. And now it's time for the bit that I jumped to earlier on. Um, what extra questions that you might have put into the chat. So we've got a question about car parks, and is the car park part of the inspection? Yes. We try to fit that in because safe access to and egress from the site is a really important part. So there's another question that's come in about, can I advise on the legal and safe tyre storage for used tyres waiting on tyre inspection? Off the top of my head, no. But it's something that I can take on board and I can provide feedback later on. But I'd rather not make it up on the spot. I'd have to have a look at what the guidelines are. Obviously, for anything, though, in a general comment that is stored, the key things that you want to look for is stability of load, so that they don't topple and fall. Tyres can be tall, can be heavy, and depending how tall you store them, can prevent a risk. You also want to consider vermin. How long are they going to sit there? Are rats and mice going to make a nest in them by the time they're collected? And you also, depending on what it is, not so much potentially with tyres, but are you introducing a fire hazard on your site? And is there a congestion point? Often with pallets, for example, if you store them too high, you might be blocking the point of view or line of sight in a corner. But I'll take the specific question about tyres on board and I'll follow up on that. We have another question about whether MTC have online WHS training manuals. There is a training package available within our Care Central portal that can be delivered in-house on general WHS roles and responsibilities. It's a PowerPoint deck. There is a workbook for participants. There is a end of presentation quiz to determine a level of understanding along with the correct answer sheet. And there is also another attachment that goes with it where the participants can establish a personal action plan, what they're going to do differently or follow up on in regard to the training that they have received. Okay, we have another question. This one relates to the size of a workshop. Is it really only large workshops that need would benefit from a site inspection? As a safety person, my answer to that would be no, it's not just limited to large. There are always hazards, there are always risks, and sometimes the smaller workshops, because of their congestion, introduce additional hazards that are not present in the larger ones. The hazards are also dictated by the type of equipment that you have on site, the type of work that you do on site. So even a small workshop that sometimes has to use the same space for different work activities can have higher risks than a larger workshop that has got clearly designated work areas for the different tasks that are being undertaken. So I believe there's benefit to every site to do a stand back and have a look around and do a site inspection. And if you've got the capacity to get someone who's independent to have a third set of eyes look at the work that you do, sometimes the unfortunate reality is we get detuned to the hazards and the risks within our own environment. We get used to stepping over, stepping around, stepping under either tangible or theoretical hazards just because we know that they're there. And we forget all about them. And then a new employee comes in or something else changes, two things occur at the same time, and that risk that we were comfortable with yesterday becomes the potential for an injury today. So my answer is, regardless of the work site, the size and the complexity, it is still beneficial to consider an inspection. Okay, we'll wind it up for today. But as a wrap up, I would like to thank you for taking the time to listen into today's session, and I do hope it's been helpful. A reminder that the session, including my mistakes, have been recorded and will be made available for review so that you can refer back to it or make it available to others at your leisure. You may want to cover some of this as part of a safety committee meeting. You may want to cover it with new workers. You may want to cover it with your lead team. It's up to you how you use it. But as a closing comment, I would encourage you to make workplace safety personal. Don't leave it for others. Regardless of your position within your organisation, I encourage you to get involved. If you see something that you think looks potentially unsafe, well, then it probably is, so don't ignore it. Maybe ask yourself, Would you feel comfortable if the person you care most about was exposed to that particular risk? If not, then make sure no one else is. Once again, I most sincerely thank you for your time today. Don't be a stranger. Reach out for help. That's what we're here for. Have a great day.